In the darkness, you are not always alone. From forgotten history to haunted places and the creatures that go bump in the night, we explored the mysteries that live just beyond the porch light and just beyond civilization. I'm Richard, and with me is my co host Craig, and this is the Supernatural Roundtable.
It started in 1998. Tim noticed meat going missing from an outdoor freezer by their house. No signs of a break in and no tracks in the dirt. No matter what he tried, he couldn't catch the thief. Then the sounds came: steps on the porch, heavy footfalls around the house, grunts and chatters from the woodline. Something was stalking them, invading their privacy, watching. Over the next 2 years, unease turned into fear. Fear turned to aggression, and one night in 2000, it all came to a head. This is the Siege of Honobia.
Hello, everyone. Things get a little strange around here. This is the Supernatural Roundtable. I'm Richard, and this is my co host Craig. And today we have a pretty interesting one about the Siege of Honobia, which is in the Bigfoot world was a major event taking place in the early 2000s, starting in 1998 actually, and the events transpired carried on into 2000. So should be an interesting one tonight. It's
Well, I mean, I
different.
I've actually got it going from starting in the 1970s through the early
Uh,
1900s
oh, you
or
found more than I did.
1990s.
You found more
A
than I
little
did.
bit, yeah.
All right. Well, Craig, go ahead and start taking it away. We'll go kind of chronologically here.
All right. Well, the siege of Honobia. Some people call it Honobia. Some people call it Honubi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Anyway, it refers to a cluster of alleged aggressive Bigfoot encounters reported in and around the tiny community. Located deep in the Ouachita Mountains, and unlike a single night event, it is known for years of repeated activity, mainly from the 1970s through the early 1900s and 90s. Um, the region is what researchers call the Oklahoma Sasquatch Triangle, linking it to Big Cedar and the Comanche backcountry.
And I've camped out that way, not quite at Honubby, but at Big Cedar. We were just south of it on the Queen Wilhelmina Trail, I guess you could call it. The road that goes across the entire top of the Comanches right there. You can take it from interior of Oklahoma all the way into Mena, Arkansas. And we had a couple of spooky nights there. I remember we had something walk up behind the tent, and it startled me out of a dead sleep. Um, Friend Zach, who's also a part of our group, he woke up to it too. It's just we were both. I hate to say it too. For everyone's like, "Oh, let's jump out of the tent and investigate," but at the time we were both kind of struck with like, I don't feel like I need to get out of this tent. So
Well, if you think about it, and why did this place become a Bigfoot hotspot? And it kind of breaks it down. It says that, it's dense hardwood and pine forest, steep ravines, limited visibility, very low population density, and, it's heavy bear and predator presence historically. So you think about that, that's the perfect recipe.
yeah, it's also thick and just prey category too, because there's a lot of deer out that way. And it's
Yeah.
the Kiamichis in the northern part where it starts is right along the Worcester Wildlife Management Area. I've been out that way, the Worcester Lake and all that, because there was an actual Bigfoot encounter that happened a couple years back. Someone on Facebook contacted me a little bit, sort of just told me he was in a primitive camp spot, which we found where that is roughly. And this thing came through his camp at night. He didn't get out of his tent, but he could hear it whooping, and then it walked around the perimeter of his camp, then off into the woods.
Well, that'd be creepy, wouldn't it?
It is creepy out there. It is thick.
And a lot of that territory down through there, it's from what I've seen, I ain't never seen it personally. I've seen, like pictures and um, topographical type maps and stuff, and it looks really dense. I mean,
It
there,
is.
ain't a lot of open spaces.
We dropped off the side of the mountain um, the 2 days we were out there, and it was a hard climb. And it was. We also had something really strange, and I'm not sure if it's Bigfoot related. We dropped off the side of the mountain. We came back up on the same rocky trail, and sitting in the middle of the trail was a pair of glasses, kind of like these, just sitting there. They weren't there when we came down, and no one followed us down. We would have heard them coming, and it was just another. I think you can chalk it up to something just weird. And then the sounds at night. I'm pretty familiar with most of the woodland sounds we got, and you are too. I couldn't place some of them because it sound something like an owl way off, but it sounded too big, and that's something you hear a lot about. And then
Right,
as I said, something coming up into the campsite, like behind the tent, into the dense woods right there, and it's the Emerald Drive area is where we were staying is primitive. There's not really any lights. It's spooky at night. It is pitch black. I mean, granted, I had night vision with us, but that's still like there. And a lot of people don't realize when you're wearing the night vision I've got, and you pull it up, it leaves you not blind for a moment,
right.
and that is, I don't like that sensation at all.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Oh, when you're creeped out and then you do that, and you're like, oh my God, something could grab me right now. But
Yeah. And that would be the time it happened.
knowing my luck, yeah. But anyway, why don't you start us off? You said you have stuff from the what is it, 70s?
Well, it's the era of it all started in the late 70s to early 1980s. Um, but anyway, I've got, it's a night uh, broken down and into what happened. It's their most, I guess that's their best story, from Honobia. Anyway, it starts out at 1,830 hours, which I think is 6:30 p.m. And it breaks it down. It says the unease begins. The hunters arrive before dark, unload their gear and settle in. Dogs begin acting abnormally, refusing to leave the porch, low growling toward the tree line. Witnesses report intermittent wood knocks, heavy steps paralleling the clearing just outside of the lantern light. At this stage, they assume it was bears, deer, or other hunters moving nearby.
And
Okay, and then we move along, and at 2015, the first whoop.
so
A D,
this is a family that the incident we're covering. Okay.
yeah, it's they said there was up to 4 adult male hunters at this cabin. Anyway, the first whoop happens at 2015. A deep, long rise of vocalization comes from the upslope, described as too long for a coyote, too deep for an owl. One witness responds with a human shout. After several seconds, a second whoop answers, but it's closer.
Hmm.
This is the moment the mood shifts from curiosity to alarm. Uh, I mean, it starts getting a little intense now. It's at 2100 hours, which what is that? 9 o'clock?
I believe so.
Yeah, something like that. I'm not very good at military time, but anyway, from 2100 hours to 2230, the encirclement sensation. During this period, um, all retellings agree on the same core details: footsteps at different compass points, sounds moving, ridge, ravine, ridge again, branches snapping at shoulder heights. The cabin interior goes quiet. There's no talking for a long period. Weapons are loaded and placed in everybody's hand. And the witness later says it felt like something was learning the cabin. Now, you talk about, all the Bigfoot history, even go back to the Ape Canyon thing, uh, a lot of it kind of sounds like that in a way.
Yeah, the harassment. It's a something you hear a lot, especially when it feels like they want to drive you out of an area they don't want you in. Now, here's the thing.
Right.
I do know that they bought this cabin, I believe, in the late 1990s. And from what I understand, see, I'm hearing it a little bit different that the family actually lived there on property. So his wife would have been present.
I'm not sure. This is the hunt. They call this the hunter's cabin. So I'm really not sure if it's a whole separate cabin away from, the main part or what.
See, that's where it's
Um,
getting a little confusing. So, okay.
right, right. Okay, and then we jump into the first impact on the cabin. This happened at 2247 hours. A solid object strikes the tin roof hard enough to dent the metal and knock the dust loose inside. Within minutes, a second impact hits a wall, then a third from the opposite side. Never the same side twice in a row. Creates the impression of multiple moving agents.
Hmm, that's
Yeah.
spooky.
And then here we go 2310 hours, the window event. One hunter claims that a dark mass briefly blocked the moonlight at the side of the window. The shape is described as broad upper body, tapered head, no visible neck. Seconds later, rock strikes just below the same window, but no glass breaks. And then at 2330 hours, alleged vocal exchange. This is one of the most dramatic claims. A low chest rattling growl comes from very close range. One witness fires a warning shot into the air through the door. Immediately after, two separate response calls are heard from different directions. This moment becomes the base hated creatures. Phew.
Well, you're
It's kind of, go ahead.
you're gonna have to repeat that last part. You froze up. Sorry, y'all. We're having internet issues for whatever
Oh,
reason.
yeah. Two separate response calls are heard from different directions. This moment becomes the basis for the later claim of multiple coordinated creatures.
Hmm.
And then 10 minutes 10 minutes after 12 midnight, all versions included in this phase: slow, deliberate footsteps on the tin roof,
Oh.
audible pacing from one end to the other. The roof is visibly flexing under the weight. This lasts from 30 seconds to nearly 3 minutes, depending on which witness is telling it. No claws reported, only flat, heavy pressure steps. And then 18 minutes after midnight, interior panic point. This is when the fear peaks. One witness reportedly panics and starts shouting. Another tries the door handle but freezes. Dogs are whining, pressing against the walls. Something slams the outer wall directly behind the stove, but no one exits the cabin. 40 minutes after midnight, sudden withdrawal. Just as abruptly as it began, all outside movement stops. No more footsteps, no more vocalizations, no more impacts. The forest just becomes completely silent. Witnesses remain awake until daylight without further incident. Whew. Now, that would be very creepy. What a night. But,
Hmm.
it gets me wondering, why did it stop?
That is interesting. I don't know why they would stop. I mean, though you've experienced the hit on a wall before, that's something you went through.
Yeah, at the old farm, something hit the side of our house and literally dented the siding and left a big old forearm print, probably, I don't know, give or take 3 foot long.
Jeez.
So yes, I mean that's very creepy. But anyway, as we move along, the daylight inspection. At first light, the hunters inspect the area. They find large, deep footprint-like impressions, um, roof dents, heavy rocks near the cabin that weren't there before, broken saplings at chest height. Uh, of course, there was no evidence of it all. They didn't photograph it or nothing, and it wasn't reported. This is all, said by witnesses.
Hmm. So this is the apparent night of where some of this takes place.
Yes, yes.
All right, I'm gonna fill in some back. See, my account kind of same with that, but I do know, according to what I've found, that according to this is they were called the Taylor family, but I've heard multiple different names, so I don't know. The main
Right,
man, the main guy is apparently named Tim. But starting in 1998, they began having strange incidents before this all came to a head. He would notice meat from his outdoor freezer would be missing. And he started keeping a running tally of like an inventory of his own meat locker, you know what I mean? And he would be able to note like
right.
stuff is missing. And it got to a point where he was trying to catch her. He was like, "Who's coming up here to steal meat from us?" Because they lived pretty far off, from what I understand. Um, and then they would start hearing sounds, chatter in the wood line that, from what I understand, is almost like the samurai chatter. Because you've heard the famous samurai chatter before. Most of us
Oh
have.
yeah, yes,
That is a
yes.
bit spooky. They were apparently finding tracks around the property and then a foul, musty odor near the house that smelt like, this is a hell of a combination, urine and burnt hair.
Huh.
So yeah, it's just I wonder if did a family move into the a clan or whatever you want to call them move into the area and start trying to drive them out of it.
That's a very very good question.
I mean, the behavior suggests harassment,
Right, right.
trying to unsettle someone and get them to leave, and they eventually did do that. Of
It
course,
sounds like to me, that that's what. Right.
yeah. Now, according to what I've got, by 1999, the prowlers did grow bolder. This is before the incident happened. They were the children would be sometimes wake up to soft tapping on the bedroom window, and this is something I've heard a lot. They're either curious about children or something, and they will. I've heard more than one story about one of these things knocking on a window or tapping on a window trying to get children's attention, and part of that could be curiosity, but it also would concern me very much so.
Well, it makes you wonder if they want the child to come closer where they can kidnap them. Uh, it's really hard to say.
I think I've said it before. I don't think these are the peaceful forest dwellers that a lot of people see them as. I think you have individuals out there like us. There's people that you don't want to be around because you just know there's bad intentions there.
Exactly. And you've heard stories. Some Bigfoot counters are real peaceful, and others are very violent.
Yeah. So that would concern me, and I imagine it did him. So and after that, soon it escalated and something started jiggling the doorknob to the front door. That would creep me out.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize these things they're smarter than what everybody realizes. I mean, they've been keeping hidden, for so many years. I think they only make themselves known if they have to.
Occasionally, or they do it like we said, there's an intentional reason for it, like the harassment. Um,
Yeah.
on several occasions, like you said, loud thumps would rattle the walls and the roof as if rocks were being hurled at the house. The family would peer outside to catch the vandal, only to find nothing but the chilly night and chorus of crickets. So the unseen visitors began prowling on the front porch, leaving muddy prints and smears along the walls and a pungent odor. It got to the point where his wife, and I don't blame the woman at all, she became very concerned. She's very afraid because it wasn't an ordinary thing. And I believe there is an account of his sister coming up to the cabin with like her daughters and something. I believe it's her daughters. And one of these things came out of the wood line towards them and was growling at them while she was trying to open the gate, and it terrified them, as it would anyone.
No doubt about it.
I mean, what would you do in that situation?
It's hard to say unless you're really in that situation. I mean, I don't know. That'd be very intense. I've been in some intense situations, and some of my sightings I froze. Others, I took off like the Dickens.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I guess it depends on the situation, and a lot of times you can tell what their intentions are. You know, I've had some, coming at me, and they didn't look very pleasant either. So it just all depends on the situation, I think.
Well, apparently for the wife, it came to a head when they discovered part of the window framing on the outside of the house, I believe by their bedroom, pulled apart, like ripped from the wall. Yeah, and then after that, she pretty much told her husband, like, look, either handle this situation or we're moving. And she took the kids, I believe, to a relative's house where she stayed until this was all resolved. See, from okay, my account here, I mean, you did the hour by hour account, and my account here is not so much an hour by hour, but on a moonless January night in 2000, around 1 a.m., it says Tim finally got a look at the intruder, alerted by frantic barking of his pack of beagles. Apparently, he had borrowed a couple of hunting dogs from a buddy of his that he was keeping inside the house just to alert them when something was around. He grabbed his rifle and stepped onto the porch and began scanning the tree line. And there by the edge of the woods stood a towering, upright figure watching him. He said it was huge and covered in dark hair. It had an uncanny silhouette like an ape, but taller than any man, with a pair of eyes shining back, pinkish red glow in the spotlight's glare. The creature moved, and in that split second of adrenaline and fear, Tim fired. The gun's report shattered the silence, and the figure lunged into the bush as the bullet flew, and Tim thought he might have hit it. An awful chorus of screams erupted from the hillside in response, not human screams, but a wild cacophony of high pitched shrieks and frantic chattering that echoed from multiple directions in the dark hollows beyond their yard. It sounded like more than one creature was out there, and they were communicating in agitation. And I believe he, at the time, was with his brother Michael, according to this. Um, they did find a trail of blood in the frosty grass outside the tree line. And they followed it, and it led to a trail, led up a trail, and then they found a fresh deer carcass. So it was really strange. They would find a fresh deer carcass. Its legs had been twisted and snapped, and its innards were bizarrely removed through a small hole torn in its neck. So he figures the blood might have actually belonged to the deer, which is weird. I don't know if they would catch it in his yard, and he came outside um, due to the dogs and the disturbance, because he was using the property. He hunted on the property too, and like I said,
Well,
go ahead.
well, maybe the maybe it was it just killed the deer. Maybe the dogs disturbed it.
That's what I was trying to say. Something like that, because it just, yeah. Uh, but anyway, so fearing for his family's safety, he actually contacted the BFRO. And this is where the stories begin to differ, because if you listen to something like Sasquatch Chronicles, one of their first episodes, I think the first
Hey,
season, huh?
can you repeat that last part? You
Oh,
cut out on that last part.
I said they contacted the BFRO, and this is where the stories begin to diverge. Um, because one of the first episodes of Sasquatch Chronicles, they were talking about the siege and the stuff that happened and the events behind it. But according to the BFRO, they did send a team of investigators up. Let me get to it. I'm not going to name the investigators' names. I don't even know if it's the real names. They showed up in an evening on January 2000. The stage was set for a long, tense night, and the weather had turned ominous with dark clouds, because of course it would, because it sounds like a Hollywood movie. Cold rain began to
Right,
fall.
right.
Yeah, yeah. Cold rain, and despite the rain, everyone was on edge and alert and determined to finally confront whatever was out there. As twilight faded, um, let's see, they didn't have anything happen at first. Shortly after midnight, the first encounter at night occurred. The men were standing guard on the front porch in rain ponchos with rifles in hand when one of the brothers suddenly spotted movement across the dirt road. fronting the house. In the dim beam of the flashlight, they caught a brief shine of two red eyes reflecting at about 7 to 8 feet off the ground. And someone yelled there, and shots rang out. The figure took off, no sounds of pain, no sound of a large animal crashing away, just rain and their own breathing. So, as I said, this is where the stories start to differ. And according to the rest of that night, it would become a cat and mouse kind of game. See, here's where I think your report said 4 hunters because there was 2 investigators and then him and his brother. So that's where it's differing a little bit.
Yeah, see, I didn't get no names or nothing, or you know what type of relations.
Yeah, I got names, but as far as the BFRO stuff, I'm not gonna say their names because I just feel like that that could be a bad idea. A barrage of thuds would hit the cabin, rocks began lobbing on the roof, and the defenders would dash over and occasionally catch a fleeting glimpse of a dark, hulking shape darting between the trees or a pair of eyes illuminating red for a split second before blinking out. Each time Tim or Michael fired off rounds towards the moving shadows, unwilling to let the intruders think they could approach with impunity, yet none of the creatures screamed. Inside the house, the adrenaline was high. One of the investigators was 72 years old and had been dozing in a car but awoke when the shooting started and joined the others inside for safety. I don't know why you would still be in a car after all that. Because there ain't
Yeah, I
no,
mean, tell you.
I ain't going to sleep out in the car with all this crap going on. Nope.
Well, you're trapped. You know you're trapped in a little bitty space.
Yeah, cabin seems more defensible
I agree. I agree totally.
because I mean something could pull off that if they're as strong as they say they are. Something could rip that door off or smash through a window, and you're caught. You're done.
Well, I mean, I figured they could probably turn it over.
Yeah, depending on the make and model and situation, but yeah, I could see one doing that, especially a bigger one.
No doubt.
Yeah, so this goes on for a while. The standoff continued apparently till 4 a.m. according to this report. Despite dozens of rounds being fired, the mysterious assailants were not hit, as far as anyone could tell. So eventually, the pitch black night gave way to the gray dawn, and they went outside to begin investigating. There were no bodies, no blood trails, and not even a clear footprint, but that can be explained away by rain.
Very true. I mean, it doesn't take long to wash a print away.
No, no, me and you have both been in the woods enough to know that.
Yeah.
A lot of people might not realize it, but yeah, weathering of a footprint begins immediately. Anything from wind, rain, something falling into it can distort a print.
Yes, very much so.
So, according to the BFRO, what this states, this is just what this states. I don't know how true it is. It is my opinion that they are truthful and there is Bigfoot activity in this area. And they were later told, like, he had food plots. They were told to get rid of the food plots, get rid of the meat outside, in the freezer, because apparently, according to what they were told, they had been habituating them, which does, in a way, make sense.
Well, I mean, the food plots bring the deer in. That brings food in. I mean it. Yeah, I could see that.
Well, not just that, there's a freezer outside full of meat for easy pickings. But according to what I do know for sure is that they did sell the place after, or got rid of the place and abandoned it. I don't even think they could sell if they tried.
Well, I've heard multiple stories on that and read about it and everything. And, one report said they were forced off by the government. Um,
I've
you
heard
know,
interesting stuff about that too.
yeah, I mean, they said that they was forced off and the land was actually bought by the government.
I don't
took
know.
over.
Now I listened to
So
that
I'm really not sure.
yeah. Well, see, I listened to that Sasquatch Chronicles episode, and I hate and I'm not like trying to knock the BFRO. I have nothing against them. I do think they probably have their own narrative set in a lot of stuff. Yeah, but I'm leaning
Well,
towards. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the BFRO, some of their methods I don't really like. How they go about trying to prove something is there. I think it just scares them away.
Well, I mean, we're not gonna outsmart these things in the woods.
No.
That's never gonna happen. But, and as I said, here's where I'm trying to get to it. Sorry, my notes are on my phone. Um, Now here's where it starts to change because we still had up to that point the creatures were screaming, throwing rocks, pounding on walls, trying doorknobs, raiding the shed freezer, and from what they were told by, I guess Wes Germer talked to this guy. I don't know. It sounds like he did, and they were not very impressed with BFRO investigation. Because as I said, one of them was an elderly man that probably had no business being up there. I don't know that. The confrontations escalated to a climax where the men actually shot one.
Now,
That's
see, I didn't get that part.
yeah, and I believe the way I understood the story is one of these things was either trying to get in the house, is right there by the door, something, and he threw the door open, and this creature saw him and then took off running because his eyes got big, because it wasn't expecting him to come out on the porch, I guess, with a gun. And they shot it, and apparently the bullet went through the back of its
Right.
neck and out the front and dropped it on the spot because he just pretty much paralyzed it and took out his jugular in one shot.
You froze up, buddy.
Oh, well, I'm moving on my screen. This
Okay, okay.
daggum internet, I swear, I don't know what is wrong with it today. Anyway, the Bigfoot appeared. Of course, this report says a little bit different. It appeared in a window, baring teeth and growling. But the brothers went outside. They reportedly shot and killed the Sasquatch at a distance of 70 yards from the house as it was trying to run away. One witness reported an enormous amount of blood, as if 5-gallon bucket of blood had been dumped out on the ground, and it even looked like maybe brain matter as well.
Huh.
Yeah,
Okay, that's very interesting.
and apparently the brothers did try to take the body, but as they approached the body, from what I understood, they were rushed from the woodlines by more of these things, and they picked up their fallen and took it off into the woods with them. And then apparently
That sound,
yeah, it escalated from there. He would not go on his
you
property
know that,
without being armed.
right. That sounds like a lot of the Bigfoot stories, especially when there's a shooting of one, um, they always seem to, reclaim their own before anybody can do anything about it.
Yeah, that's why I don't really think of them as animals. I think they're more closely related to us in some ways.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I mean, and I don't think they're, you know, ape like or anything like that. I think they're just, you know, they're so much like us people that do not realize.
Well, I mean, think about how we act, personality wise. You get some of us out there that are very vindictive when they've been wronged, And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying it is a thing. Someone wrongs someone else, and if that person
Right.
is vindictive enough, they will try to get revenge, and these things do it too. Um, from my understanding, after this, he couldn't go anywhere unarmed. He would hear like his dad's voice from the woods being mimicked, trying to draw him into the woods, and he felt like these things would, if they got a chance, they were going to get him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And
So
I even I found something pretty interesting too. And I found a comparison, between uh, Honubia, Ape Canyon, and the Lockett Ranch. And you know the all three places, have pretty much the same thing. It's in an isolated location. The terrain is rough. There's poor visibility in all of them. And everything is so similar as far as their timeline structure. The watching first, then comes the sightings, then the rock throwing and structure attacks. It's it. They have planned this out.
yeah.
And it's a pretty solid plan.
Well,
I
that
think a
shows.
lot of it is just go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with you. It shows a very startling degree of intelligence and forethought, tactical planning. Um, yeah,
Well, I think they know when people have guns, and you know they they know when to back off.
I
And
got a point to make to that. Um, according to this, I heard on the podcast itself, and I remember this detail pretty well. Um, he would go armed. I think he had like an AR-15 or something that he would carry when he was even taking out the trash. They had a big dumpster they go throw trash in. And one night he's walking out there, he has his gun, and he hears something rummaging in the trash, the dumpster. And then it stands up in the dumpster, and it's about 7 feet tall. He said it looked at him,
wow,
pretty aggressively, and then it looked down and noticed the gun. He said its eyes got huge as it spotted the gun, and apparently there was a back exit to the dumpster or hole or something they could get out of, and it shot down on all fours and was out that little hole and running across the yard on all fours before he could even get his gun up to shoot. But it recognized the gun.
yeah, I think they know they're smart enough. They know when you got a gun.
Yeah, I think
You
so.
know, and I think they're the type of creatures that they know which humans, as far as us, will shoot at them and which ones won't.
Hmm.
I mean, it's just like they can detect, just like we can detect, a bad person.
I think there's a part of that. Yeah.
You can always sense that, but I mean, this story, it's just, we come across it. I come across it on accident. I didn't even know about this story until I started doing research on it, and it's a very interesting story.
It also, like, you played up you talked about the similarities between Ape Canyon, um, Honobia, and then Lockett Ranch. Of course, I don't know much about Lockett Ranch. We were talking about doing that
Yes.
next, which we probably will. Um, but the terrain, the territory, the way it works, everything plays into their favor. And that's also a sign of intelligence. I mean, you use your ground. That is their home turf. They know it. And yeah,
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
You know, it's
And,
just like if you think about it, Ape Canyon, for instance. You know, they were throwing rocks onto the roof and stuff like that. See, they had the high ground. You know, and if you have the high ground in any place, I don't care what you are, who you are, or whatever, you got the advantage.
yeah, you have a defense multiplier.
Right.
I mean, that goes with military tactics and everything. You're holding the high ground, you're in a good spot. Um,
Yeah.
you also did mention government involvement, possibly. Um,
Yes.
according to that podcast, they've started having their phones. It sounded like they were being tapped, and these guys would show up around.
Really?
Yeah, that's what the podcast said. So, and people would start trying to show up in black SUVs around their property, and they told them to like he caught apparently caught one dude in the act of messing with the phone box outside, and he pretty much told him to get to stepping. Yeah, he was probably gonna get shot if he didn't, which I don't blame him.
No doubt.
So anyway, I don't know. I know the BFRO accounts mention nothing about a body. They attribute the blood to a deer kill, so I don't know. But and I'm not trying to knock on BFRO, but I'm leaning more towards the Sasquatch Chronicle account. So
Right. Right.
so
And all of it, it's in that, that triangle in Oklahoma. You got Big Cedar, Comanche Country, and then um, Honub. You
Honobia,
got
yeah.
all them three. Yeah, Honobia. You got all them three in this one big triangle. And you think about that too. There's you got the Alaska Triangle, you got all these other triangles, and there's always something happening in all of these things.
Well, we've also talked about how remote the Watchtows really are. I'm going to put up a couple of maps, and there are no major cities in the Watchtows. There's nothing like that. The biggest you got is what, Mina, I believe. Finally, you get
And
further,
Maine not that big
you know, not
at
really.
all.
And then further south, you got Broken Bow, but it's not massive. It's not a city. You know what I mean?
Right.
You'll
I
have
mean,
you'll have these little dotted incorporated towns throughout the Ouachitas, but there's nothing there other than nature.
and I've drove through there many times when I used to cut through. I can't exactly remember where we was actually living. I think we was living in way down toward. I think that's when we lived in Colgate. We'd come up instead of taking the interstate up, we'd cut through all that area,
Yeah,
and oh my gosh, it hit places that it just looked creepy.
it is creepy. I've been out there. I've stayed the night out there. It spooked me. And I had a shotgun with me. He had his AR-15, and we didn't want to get out of our tents.
Right.
And I can't explain that feeling because we were there for that, you know. And we were both. This just fear that comes over you that I can't explain. And then I had a coworker.
And I
Oh, go
kind of,
ahead.
I was just going to state, and, when people have that overwhelming fear, that sets in, you know, I think a lot of that's infrasound.
You're probably right. But no, I was going to say I've had two separate coworkers come up to me with two separate encounters. I don't have the date on one of them, but she was coming back from south. I think she'd been in Dallas and she was coming through uh, the mountains there instead of taking the interstate way, I guess. And something ran across the road as it's late at night, and something just bolts across the road. And she said she couldn't believe what she had seen. And then the second one is by two people that I also work, or is actually three people technically, but they were coming back from Broken Bow down there at the casino. You know, I believe Choctaw Landing now. It's a new one they built, and they would have been up
Yeah.
around the northern reaches um, of the Kiamichis, almost out of it, and they had it was a near dusk sighting of one crossing the road in front of them, and they said it was big. It was bigger than the 8 foot average. And both of them work security, so I actually trust their measurement skills on that. And they said one of them said it was about 10 foot, just cruising.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, you start talking about that, and talk about casinos and stuff that are close nearby and some of these areas. I can remember seeing a video. It was taken at one of the casinos where a creature was messing around in their dumpster, and they caught it on their cameras.
I've heard that story, but it was a fry trap, I believe. But it was one of the casinos.
I can't exactly remember, but all that. Yes, yes. Exactly. I actually seen the video and it was I mean,
You're one of the
I
few
don't
that's
see how
actually seen
anybody
it.
could yeah. It's out there. It's hard to find though. I can't remember exactly how I found it.
I'll have to look for it. But that's crazy you brought it up. I wasn't even going to bring that up. I'd heard that story from an investigator here in Oklahoma.
I can't recall which casino it was either, but it was one of them that are in Oklahoma.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just the whole area, the Washita's and the Ozarks. It's wild, man. And then you have the
It's
Washita's.
it's vast.
It is. People don't realize how big it is because you can go from pretty much Little Rock almost all the way almost to central Oklahoma, almost on dirt roads if you know what you're doing.
Well, and then it stretches down toward Texas.
Yeah. And then you have all that wilderness in southern Arkansas and all that. Oh, and we didn't even mention Area X. You've heard of Area X, right?
Yes, yes.
It's in the Kiamichis. It's in the Washita's. It's southeastern Oklahoma. Somewhere down there. I don't know where. I would like to know where, but I'm not sure that's you know, getting into a clan of them like that. I'm like, I don't know about that. So,
Yeah.
but
It'd definitely be interesting to know, exactly where it is though.
it's somewhere down there. But that's thousands upon thousands of acres.
I know it.
But
It's crazy.
well, Craig, that's about all I got for this episode.
That's all I got. I mean, there's a little bit we could talk about, but I think we've covered the main parts.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And then
And
you're wanting to do the Lockett Ranch episode. You give me a little. How about you give us a little bit of filler on that? Because I don't know anything about it. I've not heard of it.
well, the Lockett Ranch Bigfoot attacks refer to a series of alleged violent Sasquatch encounters said to have taken place on a remote cattle property in Graham County near the foothills of Mount Graham. These stories circulate heavily in the Bigfoot forums, podcasts, and YouTube testimony channels, and they're considered among the most extreme hostile Bigfoot claims in the Southwest.
Hmm.
It's actually remote eastern Arizona.
Remote Eastern. Okay, I was thinking it was in Texas or something.
No, it's in remote eastern Arizona. It says the terrain is rugged desert mountain transition zone, thick pine forest at an elevation. Uh, it's historically used for cattle grazing and seasonal ranching. But that pretty much describes it. It sounds like a pretty interesting story. I've already done some research on it, and what I found, was pretty interesting.
Huh. Yeah, I'm looking at where Mount Graham is right now.
Yeah, yeah,
It's in the middle of nowhere, pretty much. It
yeah,
is, northeast of Tucson. I don't know how far, but yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
I think it'll be a real interesting story too.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do that one next. And then by the time we do that one, we're looking to redoing or revisiting our very first one that we ever did. The
Yes,
origins of Bigfoot.
the origins of Bigfoot stretching way back for decades and decades.
Thousands of years.
Yes. Well,
Well,
I want to give a shout out right quick to Sean and Crystal. They started a new podcast. Matter of fact, they was doing an episode tonight. Um, and their podcast is called Talking True Crime. They cover some of the worst killers like Manson and uh, some of them. So check them out if you ever get a chance.
I mean, we kind of had our foray into that just one episode. I don't know. It's just not something I really care about covering.
Yeah, well we're good at this stuff.
Yeah. And then I'm going to give a shout out to Paranormal Investigations. Our friends down there in southern Arkansas. Y'all are awesome.
Yes, yes. And also check out Sean and Crystal on their Paranormal Adventures podcast. It's on Spotify and uh, Podbean.
Yeah. And then the Oklahoma Cryptid Research Team, they're awesome too. I haven't got to talk to them in a few weeks. Leading into that, this video pretty late coming in because we've had some family issues we had to take care of.
We apologize, and we thank everybody for bearing with us and sticking with us through it all. We're gonna keep putting out these videos, and we'll try to get better and better each time. And soon we'll start doing more live videos and with
Or
guests.
on location. Yeah, we're going to try to do that this next year for sure. And
Yes,
hopefully our internet isn't as bad this next time.
yes, it's
As I said, you
kind of
start
bad
cutting.
tonight, and we apologize for that.
Yeah, you start cutting out immediately right there. But all right, Craig, that's all I got.
Yeah, yeah, I know it.
Y'all hit that like and subscribe button. Leave a comment for us. We always appreciate it. And if you want to come on the channel and share a story, it doesn't even have to be Bigfoot, paranormal, any other cryptids. We're always open to it.
Ghosts, UFOs, you name it, we cover it.
Yep. You can reach out to us at supernaturalroundtable@gmail.com, and I'll answer back as soon as we get something. So,
All right, we thank y'all. Thank y'all for sticking with us.
yep.
This is the Supernatural Roundtable, signing off for now. From haunted hollers to shadows in the pines, the strange is never too far from home. Until next time, keep your wits about you, and we'll meet again down the road.